The red dust of Montana Territory hung thick in the September air, coating everything at the Red Willow Harvest Market. Hannah Cole pressed a hand against her swollen belly, the baby shifting restlessly as she stood in the cramped shade of the general store awning, 6 months along, and her black morning dress already pulled tight across her middle. The auctioneer's hammer struck wood. Another crack in the afternoon heat. "The next lot," the man bellowed, tobacco juice staining his gray whiskers. "Temporary guardianship and labor contracts, by order of the county. These folks caught bad in that ranch fire last month, need tending and can work off their keep." Hannah watched 3 men shuffle forward, wrists bound loose with rope. Not criminals she'd seen chain gangs before. These were debtors, injured men who couldn't pay for their own doctoring. The new territorial laws made strange provisions for such circumstances. The third man caught her eye, tall despite his slouch, dark hair matted with old blood above his left ear. His shirt hung open where bandages wrapped tight around his ribs. 2 children clung to his legs, a girl with fierce eyes and tangled braids, a boy who pressed his face into his father's dusty trousers. "Elias Ward," the auctioneer read from his ledger. "Cattleman. Got himself shot up by rustlers. Owen County says he can't work his land proper, can't tend his young ones. Needs a guardian sponsor till he heals or pays his liens." Men in the crowd spat and muttered. A widow stepped back, shaking her head. Nobody wanted a broken rancher with 2 extra mouths to feed. "I'll take the strong one," called a voice from behind Hannah. Silas Boone pushed through the crowd, his coat too fine for the dust and heat. "Not him, the young buck there. Leave Ward to rot." The auctioneer nodded, eager to please the territory's biggest landowner. Hannah had sewn shirts for Boone's men, heard their drunken talk. Boone wanted Ward's water rights, had probably paid for those rustler bullets himself. $20 takes guardianship," the auctioneer started. "Do I hear—" "I choose him." Hannah's voice cut sharp through the murmur. "The rancher and his children." Heads turned. Women whispered behind gloved hands. A pregnant widow in mourning clothes. Choosing a shot-up stranger with 2 whelps, it went against all sense. Boone's man, a weasel-faced clerk, pushed forward. "Now hold on, ma'am. You can't just—" "Says who?" Hannah pulled her savings book from her pocket, pages soft with handling. 3 years of needle-pricking labor. Saved coin by coin. I got the guardian fee, cash money. The auctioneer shifted his weight, hammer hovering. His eyes darted between Hannah and Boone's approaching foreman. "Ma'am." The foreman's voice dripped false courtesy. "You're grieving, not thinking clear. What's a woman in your condition want with a broke-down rancher?" Hannah met his gaze steady. "That's my business." "Auction rules say," the clerk began. "Rules say first bid takes it." Ruth Bellamy stepped out from the druggist's doorway, her gray hair pinned severe. "I heard the lady clear enough. She chose—" The crowd pressed closer. Hannah felt sweat pool at the small of her back. Her late husband's wedding ring hung loose on her thumb. She'd moved it there when her fingers swelled. Without hesitation, she pulled it free and set it on the auctioneer's table beside her savings book. "There's extra for the processing fee." Elias Ward lifted his head then, really looking at her for the first time. His eyes were gray as winter sky, clouded with pain but sharp underneath. The little girl Nora, Hannah would learn, tugged at his sleeve. "Pa," she whispered, "is she buying us?" "Hush!" But his voice held no reproach, only bone-deep weariness. The auctioneer's hammer wavered. Boone himself strode up now, boot heels striking the platform boards. $50, Boone announced, for Ward's guardianship. "Bids closed," Ruth Bellamy said firmly. "The lady already chose. You want to challenge county process, Mr. Boone. You take it to the courthouse." Hannah didn't flinch as Boone's shadow fell across her. The baby kicked hard, a fist or foot against her ribs. "You don't know what you're mixing in," Boone said low. "Meant just for her. Ward's got debts beyond doctoring. His land's got liens. His cattle. Then I guess I bought myself some debts, too. Hannah turned to the auctioneer, who sweated through his vest. We settling this or not, my feet hurt and these children need shade. The hammer fell. Once, twice. Sharp cracks in the dusty air. Sold to Mrs. Cole. Hannah Cole. Guardianship transferred. Next lot. The rope came off Elias Ward's wrists easy enough, leaving raw red marks. He swayed on his feet, caught himself against a post. The boy Tom, small for 5, made a sound like a spooked colt. Can you walk? Hannah asked, quiet. Have to. Each word cost him breath. My shop's 2 streets over, above Morrison's Dry Goods. She looked down at the children, their faces pinched with sun and fear. You youngsters hungry? Nora's chin jutted out proud. We don't take charity. Good thing I'm not offering any. Hannah picked up her empty savings book, tucked it back in her pocket. The ring was gone. $23 poorer, but the weight felt right somehow. Your pa's gonna work for his keep once he's mended. You'll earn yours too. I need shop sweepers and thread sorters. That suit you. The girl considered, then nodded once, sharp. They made a strange procession through the market crowd, pregnant widow in black. Shot-up rancher barely upright. 2 dusty children walking close enough to trip him if he swayed. Folks stared and whispered. Someone laughed. Ugly. Fool woman, a man muttered. Trading her wedding ring for another mouth to feed. Hannah kept walking. Let them talk. They didn't know about copper mine cave-ins, about identifying your husband by his boot buckle, because the rest was crushed past recognition. They didn't know about lying awake feeling the baby move, calculating how many shirts she'd need to sew to keep them both fed come spring. Choosing Elias Ward wasn't charity. It was pure arithmetic. She needed protection. Someone to stand between her and the kind of men who thought a widow was easy pickings. He needed tending and a safe place for his children. Fair trade, if they could make it stick. The walk to her shop stretched long in the heat. Elias stumbled twice. The second time, Hannah caught his elbow, felt the fever burning through his shirt. How long since those bandages been changed? She asked. Week, maybe more. Pa don't complain. Tom piped up, then pressed his face back against his father's hip. Inside the narrow stairs up to her rooms, the air hung cooler but close. Elias gripped the rail white-knuckled, hauling himself up by will alone. At the top, Hannah pushed open the door to her workroom cutting table. Dress forms, bolts of calico and wool. Home these 3 months since she'd buried James and fled the mining camps. Bed's through there, she said, nodding to the small back room. Sit before you fall. He made it to the iron bedstead, sank down heavy. The children hovered in the doorway like wild things ready to bolt. Hannah moved slow, careful, pulling her sewing scissors from her apron. Need to cut those wrappings off. See what we're dealing with. You. She looked at Nora. Know where to find a druggist? Yes, ma'am. Hannah wrote quickly on a scrap of paper. Give this to Mrs. Bellamy. Tell her I'll settle the account Friday. Don't let her give you laudanum. Your PA needs to stay sharp. Whiskey and willow bark will do. Nora took the paper, memorized the short list. Smart girl. She'd need to be... You trust me? Elias asked when the children clattered down the stairs. His eyes tracked Hannah's movements as she laid out clean cloth, water basin, her precious bottle of carbolic. Trust's got nothing to do with it. Hannah began cutting the filthy bandages away, breathing shallow against the smell. I chose you because Boone wanted you broken. Means you got something he needs. Water rights, Elias hissed as the cloth pulled free from dried blood. Creek runs through my land. Won't sell. Then we won't sell. Hannah examined the wound bullet furrow along his ribs. Angry red, but not putrid. Yet, this is gonna hurt. Already does. She worked quick. Sure, learned young, helping her mother tend mill workers' injuries back in Pennsylvania. Before the war, before heading west with James, full of dreams about copper fortunes, before a lot of things. Elias bore the cleaning silent, jaw locked, sweat beading his forehead. Only when she pulled the fresh bandages tight did he speak again. Why? Hannah tied off the cloth, sat back on her heels. Through the window, she could see Boone's men lounging outside the saloon, watching her door. Because I'm tired of running. Because those children need better than the county poor farm. Because... She stopped, hand moving unconscious to her belly. Because choosing's about all the power I got left. Footsteps on the stairs, Nora back, clutching a paper packet. Behind her. Tom struggled with a half bucket of water from the street pump. Mrs. Bellamy says to tell you welcome to the trouble, Nora reported. Also says Boone's fit to spit nails. Good. Hannah mixed willow bark tea, held the cup steady while Elias drank. His color was already better, the gray pallor easing. Now, you children wash up, then we'll see about food. Your PA needs rest. We staying here? Tom's voice came out small, hopeful. Hannah looked at the boy thin wrists, two big eyes, holding tight to his sister's skirt, looked at Elias fighting to stay conscious, at her swollen belly and empty ring finger and the life she'd stitched together from scraps. Yeah, she said finally. You're staying. Outside, a dog barked. Wagon wheels creaked past. The harvest market would run till sunset, buying and selling and trading under the vast Montana sky. But here in her rented rooms above the dry goods store, with thread and cloth and 3 broken strangers she'd chosen, Hannah Cole began the slow work of sewing together something that might, with luck and grit and time, hold fast against whatever storm was coming. The baby turned, settling into the curve of her hip. New life, demanding space, just like everything else she'd chosen to carry. The smell of carbolic and whiskey hung sharp in the back room. Hannah worked by lamplight, her needle moving steady through flesh. The bullet had carved a deeper furrow than she'd first thought, and the edges needed closing. Elias breathed shallow, knuckles white where he gripped the bed rail. No laudanum, they both knew he needed his wits. The children slept on a pallet she'd made from fabric scraps. Tom curled into his sister like a possum. Almost done. Hannah murmured. The thread was good silk, saved from a wedding dress commission. Waste not. You've had worse. How'd you know? She tied off the last stitch, dabbed the wound with whiskey. Way you hold still, man who's seen his share of doctoring. Through the thin walls came laughter from the saloon next door, piano music tinny and off-key. Hannah covered the wound with clean cloth, binding it firm but not tight. Her back ached from bending, the baby pressing heavy against her spine. The rustlers, Elias said as she gathered the bloody rags. Weren't rustlers. Figured as much. Hannah poured water in the basin. Watched the red swirl pink. Boone's men, 3 of them, came at dawn, wanted me to sign papers, when I wouldn't. He gestured weak at his ribs. Hannah wrung out the cloths, movements sharp. They kill your stock. Some scattered the rest, left me for dead till Nora found help. His eyes moved to his children. County said I couldn't protect my land proper. Gave them excuse to put me up for guardianship. Legal theft. Hannah knew the game. Seen it played in mining camps, accident here, fire there, suddenly widows signing over claims for pennies. Your water right's that valuable. Only year-round creek for 20 miles. Boone's been buying up the valley, but dry land's worthless for cattle. The lamp flame flickered. Hannah trimmed the wick, thinking. In the front room, her treadle machine sat silent. Tomorrow's work stacked beside it 2 shirts, a riding skirt, mending for the minister's wife. Barely enough to keep her doors open. And now 4 more mouths to consider. I don't take charity, Elias said, reading her silence. Soon as I can sit a horse, you'll tear those stitches and bleed to death. Leave me with 2 orphans and still no protection. Hannah set the lamp on the bedside crate. You want to help. You'll heal proper first. Then we'll talk about debts. A knock rattled the back door. Hannah's hand moved instinct to the scissors in her pocket. "It's Ruth Bellamy," came the voice. "Got something needs discussing." Hannah let her in. The druggist's wife carried a basket covered with clean cloth, but her face held no social visit pleasantness. "Boone's man came by," Ruth said low, glancing at the sleeping children. "That weasel clerk, Garrett, asking questions about guardianship laws." "Let him ask." Hannah took the basket bread. Cheese, a jar of soup still warm. Her stomach clenched with hunger she'd been ignoring. "There's more." Ruth unpinned her hat, set it precise on the table. "Garrett says there's irregularities in the auction. Says a woman in your condition ain't fit to hold guardianship. Wants the county judge to review come Monday." Elias pushed himself up, face tight with pain. "Judge Holcomb's in Boone's pocket deep as a tick." "That's 3 days." Hannah's mind raced. What's needed to make it stick? Ruth pursed her lips. "Legal household. They'll say, unmarried woman taking guardianship of a man and his children gives them room to cry impropriety." The word hung in the air like smoke. Through the window, boot steps echoed on the wooden walk below, watching already. "Then we make it proper," Hannah said. "Hannah?" Ruth's voice carried warning. "You're barely 3 months widowed. What would James—" "James is dead." The words came out flat, final. Crushed in a cave-in, I told him what happened because I could smell the rot in those timbers. He didn't listen, and now I got his baby to think of and nobody's protection but what I can buy or bargain for. Silence stretched. Tom whimpered in his sleep, and Nora's arm tightened around him. "Marriage of convenience ain't nothing new out here," Elias said careful. "But I got nothing to offer. Land's mortgaged, cattle gone." "I'm not looking for offerings." Hannah pulled out her account book, showed him the figures. "I make enough sewing to keep us fed if we're careful. You heal up, work your land, keep Boone's dogs at distance. Fair trade." Ruth looked between them, shook her head. "You're talking about binding yourself to a stranger. And Hannah, folks already whisper about you choosing him at the auction. They'll say worse if—" "Let them say—" Hannah closed the book. "Their whispers won't keep my baby fed or Boone's hands off my door." Footsteps on the back stairs, heavy and deliberate. Hannah's hand found the scissors again, but the knock came polite enough. "Mrs. Cole, Deputy Larkin. Ma'am, need a word about the guardianship papers." Hannah opened the door a crack. The deputy stood backlit by the saloon's glow, badge glinting. One of Boone's bought men. She'd bet her last needle on it. "Late for county business," she said. "Mr. Boone's concerned about the children's welfare." Larkin's eyes tried to peer past her. "Wants to ensure they're properly cared for. Mind if I come in? Verify things are suitable." "I mind." Hannah didn't budge. "You got a warrant?" "Now, ma'am, no need for difficulty. Just doing my job." "And I'm doing mine. Those children are sleeping sound after their first proper meal in days. You want to wake them for Boone's curiosity? You come back with paper from the judge." Larkin's face darkened. "You're making a mistake. Mrs. Cole, woman alone, baby coming, taking on a wounded man and his whelps." "That a threat? Deputy—" Ruth appeared at Hannah's shoulder. "Evening, Samuel. Your mother know you're doing Boone's errands this hour. She'll be expecting you for Friday's supper. Same as always." The deputy flushed. Small-town leverage Ruth Bellamy dosed half the territory's children through fevers and breaks. Made for long memories and useful debts. "This ain't over," Larkin muttered, but he backed down the stairs. Hannah bolted the door, leaned against it. Her hands shook now. Delayed reaction. The baby tumbled inside her, restless. "He'll be back," Elias said. He'd managed to swing his legs off the bed, sat gripping the mattress edge. "With papers next time." Then we best move fast. Hannah looked to Ruth. Pastor Williams still do weddings on short notice. Hannah, Ruth's voice went soft. Child, you sure there's other ways? Name one. Hannah crossed to her sewing table, pulled out clean paper. One way a pregnant widow with no kin keeps herself and her baby safe from men like Boone. One way those children don't end up on the county farm. Ruth had no answer. They all knew the arithmetic of survival out here. I'll talk to Pastor Williams, Ruth said finally. But Hannah, marriage, it's more than paper. You'll be bound till death. Already am. Hannah's hand rested on her belly. Bound to this baby, to keeping us alive. Least this way I choose my bindings. After Ruth left, Hannah sat at her table, writing out the week's accounts by lamplight. In the back room, Elias dozed fitful, fever breaking at last. The children slept on, Nora's arm still protective around her brother. Hannah had told Elias the truth. She was tired of running, tired of being prey. The ring she'd traded at the auction had been her mother's, not James's. She'd sold James's the day after the funeral, used the money for stage fare to Red Willow. Now she had needle, thread, and roof, had work for her hands and purpose for her days, and if taking on a broken rancher and his children meant trading one set of chains for another, well, at least these chains she'd chosen herself. The lamp burned low. Hannah trimmed the wick again, picked up tomorrow's mending. Her needle flashed in and out, steady as breathing. Each stitch a small promise, holding torn edges together, making something whole from pieces. Outside, boot heels rang on boardwalk, men's voices raised in drunken song. The night sounds of a raw town on the edge of civilization, where law bent easy as heated metal and only the strong or smart survived. Hannah Cole had never been strong, but smart she could manage. Smart and careful and quick with her needle. She'd sew this family together same as any garment, stitch by stitch, seam by seam, make it hold against whatever tried to tear it apart. The baby kicked again, hard enough to make her gasp. Soon, little one, she thought. Soon you'll have more than just your mother standing guard. Whether that was comfort or curse, only time would tell. The church smelled of beeswax and old wood. Morning light slanted through plain glass windows, catching dust motes that danced like lost souls. Hannah stood in her best black dress, let out twice now to accommodate her growing middle-facing Elias Ward across 3 feet of worn floorboard. Pastor Williams cleared his throat, spectacles sliding down his nose. This is irregular, he said for the 3rd time. So's half of what happens in this territory, Ruth Bellamy said from her position as witness. Just get on with it, Marcus. 3 days since the auction, 3 days of Elias healing slow, of Hannah fielding visits from concerned citizens who peered at her arrangements with sharp eyes. 3 days of Nora and Tom learning the corners of her shop, the girl organizing thread by color while the boy swept scraps with solemn concentration. Now, Sunday morning, the church empty but for their small party. Hannah had wanted it this way, quick, quiet, legal, no fuss or flowers or false sentiment. Elias stood careful, favoring his injured side. He'd managed to shave, borrow a clean shirt from the minister's charity box. His children flanked him, Tom clutching his father's hand while Nora stood straight as a fence post. Do you, Elias Ward, take this woman? I do. His voice came steady. Sure, no hesitation. Hannah met his eyes, gray as winter sky. She'd thought that first day. Now she saw other colors there, flecks of blue, green, the eyes of a man who'd made his own hard choices. Do you, Hannah Cole? I do. The words fell simple into the morning quiet. No promises of love or cherishing. Just 2 syllables of agreement, practical as a handshake. The ring, Pastor Williams asked. No ring, Hannah said. She'd sold her mother's for the auction. Had none left to give or receive. Elias reached into his pocket, pulled out something small, a horseshoe nail, bent into a rough circle. ends twisted together. "Made it this morning," he said quiet. "It'll do for now." The metal was still warm from his hands. Hannah slipped it on her finger, found it fit better than gold ever had. Nora made a small sound approval maybe, or surprise that adults could make do same as children. Then, by the authority vested in me, by Montana territory, I pronounce you man and wife. Pastor Williams closed his book with evident relief. What God has joined, let no man put asunder. No kiss. They'd agreed beforehand this was business, not romance. But Elias reached out, touched her hand brief where it rested on her belly. Acknowledgement of what they were protecting. All of them. "Papers," Ruth said brisk, producing the marriage certificate. "Need your signatures before anyone can cry false." Hannah wrote her name careful. Hannah Cole Ward now, though she'd keep just Ward for the shop sign. Let folks think what they would about a hasty marriage. Legal was what mattered. Outside, the church bell rang for proper Sunday service. Soon the good people of Red Willow would file in, dressed in their best, ready to pray and gossip in equal measure. But Hannah's strange little family would be gone by then, back to the shop where work waited. "Mrs. Ward," a voice from the church door, smooth as oil on water. Silas Boone stood backlit by morning sun, his Sunday coat immaculate. Behind him, Deputy Larkin shifted uncomfortable. "Mr. Boone," Hannah didn't correct him about the name. "Come for morning service." "Heard there was a wedding." Boone's eyes took in the scene minister. "Certificate." Elias upright but obviously weak. "Quite sudden." "Sudden things happen out here," Ruth said. "Birth, death, marriage. You know that well as anyone." Boone ignored her, focused on Hannah. "I worry you've been taken advantage of. Mrs. Ward, a grieving woman, delicate condition. Perhaps you signed papers you didn't fully understand." "I understand fine." Hannah folded the certificate, tucked it in her pocket where it pressed against the baby. "We're married legal. Elias and his children are my family now." "Family." Boone tested the word like bad meat. "And when your husband here can't work his land, when the bank comes calling for his debts, what kind of family will you have then?" Elias straightened despite the pain it cost him. "My debts are my business." "Were your business?" Boone smiled thin. "But your wife's property becomes yours now, doesn't it? Her shop, her earnings. Everything she's worked for now liable for your failures." Hannah felt the trap of it. Neat as stitches. Montana law made a wife's property her husband's to control. She'd just handed a stranger power over everything she'd built. "That's our concern," she said steady. "Is it?" Boone pulled a paper from his coat. "Because I have here a note for $300, taken against the Ward Ranch, due in full end of month. That's, what, 2 weeks." Tom pressed against his father's leg. Nora's face went blank as slate. "That note's not due till spring." Elias said, "Was spring, but the terms say I can call it in if the property's endangered. Getting yourself shot, abandoning your cattle, taking up with a seamstress, I'd say that qualifies." Hannah calculated fast. $300, more than she'd see in 2 years of steady sewing. "We'll pay," she said. Boone's eyebrows rose. "With what, Mrs. Ward, your needle and thread?" "With work, labor, trade." Hannah stepped forward, keeping her body between Boone and the children. "There's ways to settle debts besides cash money." "I don't need seamstress work." "But you need information." The words came without planning, driven by instinct. "You need to know which ranchers are thinking of selling, which wives are unhappy enough to push their husbands toward your offers, which merchants might be persuaded to call in credit." Silence stretched. Even Ruth looked shocked. But Hannah had learned things in 3 months of sewing for the territory's women. Learned who drank, who gambled, who struck their wives, who was desperate enough to sell out to men like Boone. "You're suggesting you'd spy for me," Boone said slow. I'm suggesting an arrangement. Information in trade for time on that note. Elias made a sound behind her. Protest, maybe, but he kept quiet. Smart man, he knew she was buying them breathing room. Boone studied her, this pregnant widow in black who disrupted his plans. You're not what you seem, Mrs. Ward. Neither are you. We both know those weren't rustlers who shot my husband. The words, my husband, felt strange on her tongue, but she let them stand, claiming Elias as surely as she'd claimed his children. Prove it. Boone said, don't need to, just need to make enough folks wonder. Your reputation matters in this valley. Mr. Boone, the righteous landowner, bringing civilization to the wilderness. Be a shame if people started questioning that story. Deputy Larkin's hand drifted toward his gun. Pastor Williams made a small sound of distress. 1 month, Boone said finally. You bring me something useful. I'll extend the note. But if you're thinking of playing both sides, remember accidents happen on the frontier. To men, to women, even to children. Get out of God's house. Ruth said sharp. You've done your threatening. Boone tipped his hat. Mockery in the gesture. Mrs. Ward, congratulations on your marriage. May it bring you all you deserve. He left, Larkin trailing like a kicked dog. The church felt colder in his absence. Or maybe that was just Hannah's blood finally catching up to what she'd done. You can't trust him. Pastor Williams said, Hannah, child, what are you thinking? I'm thinking we need time. She turned to Elias, found him watching her with those storm-colored eyes. You angry? Should be. He shifted weight, hand pressed to his ribs. But you just bought us a month I couldn't. Hard to be angry at that. We should go, Ruth said, before the congregation arrives and wants explanations. They made their slow way out, Elias leaning on Hannah without shame. The children walked ahead, Nora holding Tom's hand tight. A strange wedding party. Black clothes and horseshoe nails and threats hanging overhead like storm clouds. At the shop, Hannah helped Elias up the narrow stairs. Each step cost him. Sweat beading his forehead despite the morning cool. But he made it, sank into the chair by her cutting table with relief. Need to change those bandages, Hannah said. Need to talk first. He caught her hand, gentle but firm. What you did in there was necessary, was dangerous. Boone doesn't forgive, doesn't forget. Neither do I. Hannah pulled free, went to heat water. He took your cattle, tried to kill you, nearly orphaned your children. You think I'll forget that? This isn't your fight. She turned on him then, all the fear and fury of the morning boiling over. Became my fight when I chose you at that auction. Became my fight when I signed that marriage paper. Your debts are mine now. Remember, your children are mine. Your enemies too. The baby kicked hard, reminding her to breathe. She pressed a hand to her side, forcing calm. I won't spy for him, she said quieter. But he doesn't know that. Month gives us time to figure something else. What's something? I don't know yet. Hannah brought the water. Clean cloths. But my mama used to say every knot has a loose thread somewhere. Just got to find it and pull. She unwound his bandages careful, found the wound healing clean. Her stitches held neat, no sign of poison in the flesh. Small mercies. Tell me about the water rights, she said, working. Why they matter so much. So he told her, voice low while she cleaned and wrapped, about the creek that ran year-round, fed by mountain springs, about Boone's grand plans for a cattle empire, impossible without water, about other ranchers, holding out but weakening as Boone applied pressure. He can't force us all out, Elias said, but one by one. He's managing. Then maybe it's time to stop being one by one. Hannah tied off the bandage, an idea forming. How many ranchers left with water access? Besides me, maybe 6. Thompson, Garza, the Nilsson brothers, few others. And their wives? Hannah asked. I've sewn for most of them. They trust me, or trust me enough. Elias caught on quick. You're thinking of organizing. I'm thinking Boone's strong because we're scattered, but together, she shrugged. Might be worth trying. From the front room came the sound of the door opening. Nora's voice raised in challenge. Hannah grabbed her scissors, but it was only Ruth returning. Brought Sunday dinner, she announced, setting a basket on the table. And news. Boone's called a meeting at the Cattlemen's Association tomorrow, planning to propose new water use regulations. Let me guess. Elias said dry. Regulations that favor large operations. While penalizing small ranchers, he's not waiting for that month he gave you. Hannah felt the net drawing tight, but she'd been caught before, in darker places than this. The key was not to panic, not to pull against the snare. Then we'd better work fast, she said. Ruth, I need you to spread word quiet-like. Any woman who's worried about her family's future, tell her I'm having a sewing circle Tuesday afternoon. Bring their mending and their troubles. What are you planning? Don't know yet. Hannah looked at her strange new family wounded husband, wary children, friend who'd stood by her. But I'm tired of men like Boone deciding our fate while we sit quiet. Time we started stitching our own pattern. Ruth nodded slow. I'll spread the word. Careful, though. Careful's for people with choices. Hannah touched her belly, felt life flutter there. Rest of us make do with clever. The church bell rang again, calling the faithful to worship. But in the rooms above Morrison's dry goods, Hannah Ward was planning a different kind of congregation, one that met with needles instead of prayers, determination instead of hymns. She looked at the horseshoe nail on her finger, ugly and honest. First thread pulled, now to see what unraveled. The cornbread burned while Hannah taught Nora to fold in the edges of a seam. Smoke filled the small kitchen, sending Tom scrambling to open windows while Elias, still moving careful, scraped char from the bottom of the pan. Sorry, Mama Hannah, Nora said, not looking up from her stitches. The name had appeared 3 days after the wedding, unprompted and matter-of-fact. Bread's salvageable, Hannah said. Most things are, if you're willing to work at it. Through the window came the sound of hammering. Boone's men building something at the land office, working even though it was past sunset. Everything that man did had purpose, and none of it good for families like theirs. 2 weeks since the wedding. Elias could sit a horse now, though not for long. His color was better, the gray pallor gone. Mornings. He helped with heavy work hauling water, moving bolts of fabric. Afternoons. He worked leather in the corner, mending tack for extra money. His hands stayed busy, but Hannah caught him staring sometimes at nothing, mind gone to his lost ranch. Pa, you're bleeding through, Tom said quiet. Sure enough, red seeped through Elias's shirt where he'd stretched too far, reaching for thread. Hannah set down her teaching and went to him, lifted the fabric careful. Just pulled a stitch, he said. Stubborn fool. But her hands were gentle, cleaning the small tear. They'd developed this a language of touch and tending that said more than words. Not love, but something that might serve better. Understanding. Riders coming, Nora said from the window. Hannah's hand found her scissors. These days, she kept them always within reach. But it was Maria Garza who climbed the back stairs, her daughter Rosa behind her carrying a bundle. Mrs. Ward, Maria said formal, though they'd known each other since Hannah arrived. We've come for the sewing circle. Day early, Hannah said, but stepped aside to let them in. Everything all right? Maria's face, usually warm as fresh bread, looked pinched. Eduardo heard about Boone's water regulations. If they pass... She stopped, noticed the children listening. Rosa, take the little ones down to see the new kittens behind the store. When the children left, Maria sank into a chair. We'll be finished. The regulations say water rights must be actively utilized for profitable enterprise. But they define profitable as 1,000 head minimum. We run 300. Thompson has maybe 500, Elias said. The Nilsons together might make 7. Exactly. Maria pulled out a flask, took a drink, passed it to Hannah. Mescal. Burning warm. Boone's bought the Cattlemen's Association. Votes tomorrow. Then we'd better work fast. Hannah went to her trunk, pulled out papers she'd been gathering. I've been writing letters. To the territorial governor, the federal land office, if we can prove Boone's trying to create a monopoly. With what proof? Maria asked. Hannah spread the papers. With this, every woman who's come to my shop talks about the threats, the cut fences, the poisoned water holes. I've been writing it down, getting them to sign statements. You've been collecting evidence, Elias said slow, without telling me. Without telling anyone. Hannah met his gaze steady. Safer that way. A knock at the door, 3 short, 2 long. Ruth's signal. Hannah let her in, along with Susan Thompson and Anna Nilsson, the brother-sister who kept their books. Started without us. Ruth observed. Good. We need every minute. They gathered around Hannah's cutting table. 5 women with rough hands and worried eyes. Hannah poured coffee, set out the salvaged cornbread, simple food for serious work. We need a plan, she began. Boone's regulations. Another knock. Not the signal. Hannah froze. The women exchanged glances, hands moving to whatever they carried. Ruth's medical bag, Maria's kitchen knife. Mrs. Ward. A young voice, uncertain. It's Jenny Sutton, from the Double Bar. Please, I need... Hannah opened the door. Jenny couldn't be more than 17, her face swollen from crying, or from the bruise spreading purple across her cheek. Come in, child, Ruth said, already reaching for her bag. My husband... Jenny stopped, saw the other women. I shouldn't be here. He said not to talk to anyone, but I heard about the sewing circle and... You're safe here, Hannah said firm. Sit, tell us. The story came in pieces. Jenny's husband worked for Boone, had been promised foremanship if he helped push out the small ranchers. But he'd learned something. Overheard Boone planning worse than regulations. Fire, Jenny whispered. He means to burn out anyone who won't sell, make it look like accidents, kitchen fires, barn fires. Already has the men picked for it. The room went cold despite the stove's heat. Hannah thought of her shop, the fabric that would burn so easy, of the children sleeping upstairs. When? Elias asked. After the vote, when folks are distracted, arguing about regulations. Jenny touched her bruised face. I tried to tell Carl it was wrong. He disagreed. We need to get you somewhere safe. Ruth said, Then figure out how to stop this. Where's safe? Anna asked, bitter. Boone owns half the town. Not half, Hannah said. An idea formed, desperate and maybe brilliant. He owns the men, but the women. She looked around the table at worn faces, capable hands, women who'd birthed babies in wagon beds, buried husbands and children, built lives from nothing but determination. The votes at the Cattlemen's Association, she said. Men only. But nothing says we can't be there, outside, watching, making sure our husbands vote their conscience. They'll vote how Boone tells them, Susan said. Too scared not to. Then we need to make them more scared of us. Hannah pulled out clean paper, began sketching. Every woman whose man has a vote, every daughter, sister, mother. We gather at the association, peaceful but present. Let them look us in the eye while they sell our futures. And if Boone's men try to run us off? Maria asked. Then everyone sees it. Hard to claim you're bringing civilization when you're running off pregnant women and children. You're talking about a protest, Ruth said. In broad daylight, putting targets on ourselves. Already have targets. Hannah touched her belly. Might as well make them count. The women looked at each other, measuring courage against fear. Outside, That hammering continued, building something that would cage them all if they let it. "I'll spread word," Anna said finally. "The Nilsson wives will come." "Mine too," Maria added. "And my comadres." One by one they committed. A quiet revolution born at a cutting table. They worked out details: who would stand where, what to bring, how to keep it peaceful but firm. Jenny Sutton listened silent, holding ice to her bruised face. "You'll stay here tonight," Hannah told her when the others prepared to leave. "Tom can sleep with Elias. You take his bed." "I can't if Carl finds out." "If Carl finds out, he'll deal with me." Elias spoke quiet from his corner. "Man who hits his wife deserves what comes." The women left in ones and twos, slipping away like shadows. Hannah cleaned up the coffee cups, mind still turning. So much could go wrong, would go wrong, most likely. But doing nothing was its own kind of death. "You should have told me," Elias said when they were alone. "Told you what? That I was gathering stories, writing letters." Hannah faced him. "You were healing, still are." "I'm your husband." "By paper and convenience." The words came sharp. "We made a bargain, not a love match. Don't start pretending different now." He stood careful, crossed to her, this close. She could smell leather and soap, see the lines pain had carved around his eyes. "You think I don't know what this is?" he asked, soft. "But paper or not, we're in it together. Your risks are mine. These children," he gestured upstairs, "they call you Mama. That means something." "Means I'm what they have." Hannah felt tired suddenly. The weight of plans and fears. "Doesn't mean I know what I'm doing." "Nobody does." His hand touched her shoulder. Brief comfort. "But you're doing it anyway. That matters." A sound from upstairs, Tom's voice raised in nightmare. They went up together, found him tangled in sheets, calling for his real mother. Nora sat beside him, stroking his hair, humming something low. "He dreams about the fire," she told them. "The one that killed Mama. Gets confused sometimes." Hannah sat on the bed's edge, didn't try to hold him. Just there, solid and present. "Dreams can't hurt you," she said. "Only real things can, and we won't let them." "Promise." Tom's voice came small. Hannah looked at Elias over the children's heads, saw her own determination reflected there. Whatever they'd started as convenience or bargain, they were something else now, something harder to name but just as real. "Promise," she said. Later, with children settled and Jenny Sutton sleeping safe in Tom's bed, Hannah and Elias sat by the kitchen stove. She showed him all her gathered papers, statements, letters, plans sketched in pencil. "It might work," he said finally. "Might also get us all killed. Boone's going to destroy us either way. Least this way we fight." "Together." The word hung between them, heavier than any wedding vow. Hannah thought of the horseshoe nail on her finger, how it had worn smooth these 2 weeks. Not pretty, but strong, like everything else they were building. "Together," she agreed. Outside, wind rattled the windows. First storm of autumn coming, bringing change whether they were ready or not. But inside was warm, was safe, was theirs for now. Tomorrow would bring the vote, the protest, the risk of everything. But tonight, they had this wounded man and pregnant widow, children who weren't theirs by blood, friends sleeping safe from violent husband, family built from scraps and determination. It would have to be enough. The moon hung like a broken coin over the trail. Elias rode ahead, Winchester across his saddle, while Hannah gripped the wagon seat. 3 hours past midnight, heading home from the Garza's ranch where they'd spent the evening planning tomorrow's protest. "Ridge coming up," Elias called back soft. The place where the trail narrowed between 2 rock faces. Hannah's hands tightened on the reins. If Boone's men planned an ambush. The first shot cracked the night open. The horse screamed, lurched sideways. Hannah fought to control the wagon as more shots erupted from the rocks above. "Get down!" Elias wheeled his mount, firing back at muzzle flashes. Hannah rolled off the seat, hit the ground hard. Pain shot through her hip, but she crawled beneath the wagon bed. Bullets whined overhead, splintered wood. "There!" a voice from above. "Ward's returning fire." She recognized that voice, Jake Morrison, Boone's foreman, the one Jenny Sutton had warned them about. This wasn't random violence. This was execution. Elias's rifle cracked steady. He'd found cover behind a boulder, was keeping them pinned, but Hannah could see the dark stain spreading across his shirt. The ride had opened his wound. "Give it up, Ward," Morrison shouted. "You're outnumbered." "Come down here and count," Elias called back. Hannah pressed against the cold ground, one hand protecting her belly. The baby moved, responding to her racing heart. Think. The wagon bed held supplies from Maria flour, fabric, a can of kerosene for the lamp. Kerosene. Moving careful, she reached up, found the can, full, heavy. Next, the matches in her coat pocket. The fabric bolts would burn fast, make smoke and confusion. Maybe enough for Elias to... Movement to her left, a man creeping down the rocks, trying to flank them. The moonlight caught his face. Carl Sutton, Jenny's husband. He hadn't seen her under the wagon. Hannah held her breath, let him pass, then rolled out the other side, grabbed a rock the size of her fist. "Hey," she said. Sutton turned. The rock caught him above the ear, dropped him like a sack of grain. His pistol fell, skittered across gravel. Hannah grabbed it, checked the loads. 5 shots. "Morrison," she called. "I've got Sutton's gun, and matches for this kerosene. Want to see how fast your men run when they're burning." Silence, then Morrison's laugh, ugly in the dark. "You won't burn your own wagon, not with Ward hurt and you breeding. Try me." Hannah splashed kerosene across the wagon bed. Let it drip obvious. "Already lost one husband. What's another?" "Hannah," Elias said, warning. She struck a match, held it high. The small flame danced, casting wild shadows. "Call off your men or we all burn together." Long seconds passed. The match burned down toward her fingers. Then Morrison's voice. "Fall back. We've made our point." Bootsteps retreated up the rocks. Hannah waited, counting heartbeats, until the night went quiet, except for the horse's labored breathing. "They're gone," Elias said finally. Hannah dropped the match, hands shaking now. Went to him, found his shirt soaked with blood, not just the old wound, a new graze along his ribs. "Can you ride?" "Have to." He looked at Sutton's still form. "He dead." "Don't know. Don't care." Hannah helped Elias stand. "We need to get home before they change their minds." They got Sutton's gun belt, left him breathing in the dirt. The wagon horse was hurt but not dying. Hannah let it slow while Elias rode alongside, swaying but upright. "That was fast thinking," he said. "The kerosene. Would have done it." The truth surprised her. "Would have burned us all rather than let them win." "I know." They made it home as dawn grayed the sky. Hannah half-carried Elias up the stairs, Nora and Tom appearing scared in their night clothes. "Get Ruth," Hannah told Nora. "Tell her to bring everything. Go." The girl ran. Hannah cut away Elias's shirt, assessed damage. The bullet had gouged flesh but missed anything vital. Lucky. This time. "Tom," she said, calm. "Need hot water. Can you manage the stove?" The boy nodded, scurried off. Brave children. They'd had to be. "Ruined your stitches," Elias said, trying for light. "I'll make more." Hannah pressed cloth to the wound, felt his blood warm her hands. "This is my fault. The protest, stirring things up." "No." His hand covered hers. "This is Boone showing his true face. Now everyone will see." Ruth arrived with the dawn, took over with efficient hands. The new wound was clean, would heal if infection didn't set in. She stitched while Hannah held Elias steady, their eyes locked over Ruth's gray head. "There's something else," Ruth said when she finished. "Jenny Sutton's gone, slipped out in the night, left a note saying she couldn't put you in more danger." Hannah thought of Carl Sutton lying in the dirt. "She's got bigger problems than that." By full morning, word had spread. The ambush, the threats. Morrison's voice carrying clear Ward's returning fire, making it sound like Elias started it, painting him as the aggressor. "Changes nothing," Hannah said. She stood at her cutting table, working, not sewing loading, 5 pistols laid out, her own and what they'd gathered. Ruth cleaned each one while Maria Garza helped prepare ammunition. "Changes everything," Susan Thompson argued. She'd arrived pale, shaken by news. "If they're shooting now..." "Then backing down means they win." Anna Nielsen spoke firm from the corner where she minded the children. "My brothers are still going to vote no. Your husband..." Susan didn't answer. That was answer enough. "The protest," someone began, "happens as planned." Hannah set down the loading rod. "Unless you all want to spend your lives asking permission to breathe." The women looked at each other. Scared, angry, determined. The mix that made frontier wives survive when soft city women crumbled. "I'll stand with you," Maria said. "Eduardo, too. We've been pushed enough." One by one, they committed again. Fear transformed to resolve. They'd stand outside the Cattlemen's Association, peaceful but armed. Let Boone's men try to move them. "What about Elias?" Ruth asked, quiet. "He can't ride, can't fight. He'll stay here with the children." Hannah met the objection she saw forming. "Someone has to guard the home ground, case they try burning us out while we're gone." Truth was, she didn't think Elias could make it down the stairs, much less into a fight, but she kept that fear close, another weight to carry. The day passed in preparation. Women came and went, bringing food, ammunition, news. The Suttons had vanished, Carl's horse gone from the livery. Jenny nowhere to be found. Good. One less complication. As evening approached, Hannah helped Elias to the front window where he could watch the street, handed him a rifle, though they both knew he could barely lift it. "You be careful," he said. "Careful's for people with choices." She touched his face, brief, felt stubble and fever warmth. "Keep the children safe." "Hannah," he caught her hand. "What we are, this thing we built, is worth fighting for." She finished his thought, surprised to find it true. All of it. Nora appeared in the doorway, Tom behind her. "We want to come." "No." Hannah and Elias spoke together, then shared a look at their unity. "You guard your PA." Hannah told them, "That's your job, most important one there is." She left before arguments could start, joined the women gathering in the street. 20 of them now, maybe 25. Not many against Boone's money and guns, but enough to be seen, to matter. They walked together through Red Willow's dusty streets, past the saloon where men stared, past the church where Pastor Williams watched from his doorway, torn between blessing and warning them. The Cattlemen's Association building sat squat on Main Street, windows glowing with lamplight. Men's voices rumbled from inside, the vote already starting. "Here," Hannah said, marking their spot, "where they have to see us when they come out." They formed a line across the street, mothers and daughters, wives and widows. Some held babies, all held iron in their spines. Morrison appeared on the association steps, still dusty from the night's work. His smile was snake cold. "Ladies, this is a private meeting." "Public street," Hannah said. "We'll wait for our men." "Your men are voting, democratically, peacefully." Morrison's hand rested on his gun. "Shame if that peace was disturbed." "Shame if it was." Hannah's coat hung open despite the cold, showing the pistol at her hip. "We're peaceful women, waiting peaceful." The standoff stretched, Then doors opened behind Morrison. Men filed out, ranchers, merchants, the powerful and the cowed. Some looked at the women with surprise, others with shame. "The vote's done," Boone announced from the doorway. "Water regulations pass, 15-6. Progress comes to Red Willow." Hannah searched faces, counting. Thompson had voted with Boone. She could see it in his wife's slumped shoulders. But the Nielsens, the Garzas, a few others had held firm. Not enough to win, but enough to show resistance. "You hear that, ladies?" Morrison called. "It's legal now. Your husbands can explain the new rules at home. Our husbands can try." Maria Garza stepped forward, chin high. "But the women of this valley have rules too. Any man who votes away his children's future answers to us." A ripple through the crowd, men shifting uncomfortable, women standing straighter. This wasn't how things were done. Wives didn't challenge husbands in public, didn't show teeth. "Eduardo Garza," Maria continued, "you voted your conscience. Come home with pride." Her husband emerged from the cluster of men, crossed to her side. A moment. Then one of the Nielsen brothers did the same. Then another man, and another. The 6 who'd voted no, joining their women. "Rest of you," Hannah said clear, "remember this moment, when your wells run dry, when Boone charges you triple for water, when your children ask, why remember? You chose this." She turned her back on them. The other women did the same. They walked away together, the men who'd stood firm falling in beside them. Behind, Boone's voice rose angry, but they didn't look back. The walk home felt longer, adrenaline fading, leaving exhaustion. The baby sat heavy, pressing down. Hannah's hip ached from the fall. "You did it," Ruth said quiet. "Made them look, made them see, made them angry." Hannah knew the cost would come, but for tonight, they'd stood, been counted, shown Boone that not everyone would kneel. Back at the shop, she climbed the stairs heavy, found Elias still at the window, children asleep against his shoulders. He looked up when she entered, and she saw relief flood his face. "It's done," she said. "We lost the vote but kept our spines." Heard the shouting, thought. He stopped. "Come here." She went, sat careful beside him. He smelled of blood and gunpowder, fever sweat and leather. Familiar now, real. "Thompson voted with Boone," she said. "He'll regret it." Elias shifted, winced. "When Boone turns on him too, they always do." Outside, boots on boardwalk, men heading to saloons to drink away the taste of shame or triumph. Tomorrow would bring consequences, burned barns, poisoned wells, worse. But tonight, Hannah's strange family was whole, was safe, was together. "We need to get you to bed," she said. "In a minute." His arm came around her, careful of her belly. "Just sit for a minute." So they sat, wounded man and pregnant widow, watching over their children and their town. The moon that had lit last night's ambush now blessed them through glass, making everything silver and possible. Not peace, never that. Not while men like Boone drew breath. But this moment of quiet resistance, of chosen family, of survival despite the odds. It was enough. For now. The stage to Dry Fork rattled over washboard roads. Every bump a fist to Hannah's spine. 8 months pregnant now. She shouldn't be traveling. But the anonymous telegram had been specific, evidence you seek at Widow O'Rourke's boarding house. Come alone, trust no one. Beside her, Elias gripped the seat. His wounds had healed enough to ride, but barely. They'd argued about him coming their first real fight as husband and wife. "I go alone or not at all," she'd said. Like hell. His quiet fury had surprised them both. Already ambushed once, not losing you to Boone's tricks. So here they were, jolting toward answers or traps, leaving the children with Ruth. The other passengers, a drummer selling patent medicine and the 2 miners heading to the copperfields, avoided their eyes. Something about a pregnant woman and an armed man discouraged conversation. Dry Fork sprawled along the railroad tracks, bigger than Red Willow but meaner, the kind of town that ate the weak and spat out bones. Hannah had sewn for women here before, heard their whispered stories of violence and vanishing. "Widow O'Rourke's?" Elias asked the stage driver. The man spat tobacco. "Down by the ferry landing, yellow house with green shutters. But folks don't visit the widow casual-like." They walked slow through muddy streets. Hannah's back screamed with each step, the baby riding low and heavy. She'd counted wrong or the child was early. Either way, time was running short. The yellow house sat apart from its neighbors. Garden wild but purposeful herbs Hannah recognized from Ruth's medicine bag. A woman answered their knock, tall and gray as granite. "Mrs. O'Rourke." "Maeve." Her Irish accent softened the edges. "You'll be the seamstress. Come, he waits outside." "He stays." Hannah didn't move. Maeve studied Elias, seemed to weigh him in some invisible scale. "Armed?" "Yes." "Good. You'll need it before this ends." Inside was clean, but cluttered. Every surface holding books, papers, curiosities. Maeve led them to a back parlor where oil lamps burned despite the afternoon sun. "Tea?" "Answers," Hannah said. "Who sent the telegram?" "I did." A man emerged from the corner, shadows thin, missing 3 fingers on his left hand. "Name's Caleb Dunn." Elias's gun appeared. "You rode with Boone." "Did, till the fire that killed Ward's wife." Dunn held up his maimed hand. "Got trapped in the barn trying to save the horses. Boone left me to burn. Your wife pulled me out." "Mary," Elias said soft. "She never mentioned—" "Was dying herself, smoke in her lungs, but she dragged me clear. Went back for the young ones." Dunn's voice went rough. "Been looking for ways to pay that debt." "Pretty words." Hannah kept her hand near her pistol. "What proof?" Dunn looked to Maeve, who produced an oilcloth bundle from a drawer. Inside, a leather journal, pages yellowed but intact. "Boone's foreman from 5 years back," Maeve explained. "Kept records of everything, bribes, threats, murders made to look accidental, names, dates, amounts." Hannah opened the journal careful. The handwriting was cramped but clear. Lists of payments to judges, sheriffs, land assessors, and there her breath caught. "Ward Ranch fire," she read. "February 15th. Morrison and 3 others. Make it look like lamp accident. Woman and children expendable." Elias went still beside her. She felt the tremor in him. Rage held tight. "There's more." Dunn said, "Maps showing actual water sources versus filed claims. Proof Boone's been falsifying surveys. Stealing access." "Why give this to us?" Hannah asked. Maeve poured tea with steady hands. "Because I'm tired of watching good people ground down. Because my own husband died in a mine Boone claimed was safe. Because—" she smiled sharp. "Because I like seeing powerful men fall." Hannah turned pages, mind racing. Here was everything they needed. Proof of corruption stretching back years, reaching into the territorial government itself. Enough to hang Boone, if they could get it to honest law. "Federal marshal in Billings," Elias said, thinking along the same lines. "Judge Carter, he's straight." 3 days by train. Maeve pulled out a railroad schedule. "If you leave tonight—" "We can't!" Hannah gasped as pain lanced through her back. Not the ache of travel. Something deeper, primal. The baby. When? Maeve was already moving, checking Hannah's eyes, feeling her belly with expert hands. "Not for 2 weeks. I counted." "Babies don't count." Maeve helped her to a settee. "How long have the pains been coming?" Hannah thought back. The tightening she'd blamed on the stage ride. The pressure she'd ignored. "Since morning." "Then we have time, but not much." Maeve turned practical. Done. Fetch the doctor. The young one, not the drunk. You. She pointed at Elias. Help me get her upstairs. No. Hannah gripped the journal. We need to. Another pain rolled through her, stealing breath. The baby was coming now. Here, in a stranger's house in a hostile town. The worst possible timing. The evidence? She gasped. We'll keep another day. Elias lifted her easy despite his healing wounds. First things first. They got her to a small room, clean and sparse. Maeve worked efficient, preparing the space while Elias held Hannah's hand. I can't, Hannah said. Not here. The children need you alive. His voice was firm. Everything else can wait. The doctor arrived young as promised, with gentle hands and whiskey breath. He examined Hannah quick, pronounced things progressing normally, with the casual dismissal of men who'd never labored. I'll be downstairs, he said. Call when she's closer. Useful as tits on a boar. Maeve muttered, then louder, We'll manage ourselves. Hours passed in waves of pain and breath. Maeve proved expert as any midwife, talking Hannah through each surge. Elias stayed close, letting her crush his fingers, wiping sweat with cool cloths. Tell me, Hannah gasped between contractions. About Mary, the fire. Elias hesitated, then spoke low. She was hanging wash, saw smoke from the barn, ran to save the horses, always loved them more than sense. His voice cracked. I was in the east pasture. By the time I saw flames, the house was going too. Got the children out, but Mary went back for done, Hannah finished. Never knew. She was already burned bad, lungs full of smoke. Lived 3 days. Never said about pulling anyone out. He looked toward the window. Like her, though, saving even those who didn't deserve it. Another pain, stronger. Hannah bit down on leather Maeve provided, tasted salt and years of other women's struggles. Boone killed her, she said when she could speak. Sure as if he pulled a trigger. Yes. We make him pay. Yes. Simple promises between contractions. The sun set, casting long shadows. Somewhere in town, a train whistle sounded. The federal marshal in Billings seemed impossibly far. Soon now, Maeve said. When the next pain comes, you push. Hannah had helped birth babies in the mining camps. Knew the theory, but knowing and doing were different rivers. The urge came primal, undeniable. She bore down, felt the world narrow to this moment, this necessary violence of bringing life. Again, Maeve commanded. Time stopped meaning anything. There was only the work, the burning stretch, Elias's voice anchoring her to something beyond pain. Then, a cry, thin but fierce. Boy, Maeve announced, working quick to clean and wrap. Small but breathing strong. Hannah reached with shaking hands, gathered her son against her chest. He was perfect dark hair like his dead father, stubborn chin already set, alive despite everything. A river, she whispered. His name is River. Elias touched the baby's head gentle, for the water that brought us together. The water we're fighting for. Hannah looked up at him, saw her own fierce love reflected. Not for each other that would come or not, but for this child, these children, this future they were trying to build. A commotion downstairs. Dunn's voice raised in warning. Boots on stairs, too heavy for the doctor. Morrison, Elias said, already reaching for his gun. The door slammed open. Boone's foreman filled the frame. 2 men behind him. His eyes took in the scene Maeve with bloody hands. Hannah clutching the newborn. Elias half raised from his chair. Touching, Morrison said. Real touching. Heard you were in town. Ward. Thought I'd pay respects. Get out! Elias's gun centered on Morrison's chest. Now that's unfriendly. Just came to offer congratulations. And a warning. Morrison's smile was all teeth. Accidents happen. To women. To babies. Shame if... The gunshot was impossibly loud in the small room. Morrison looked down surprised at the spreading red on his shirt. Then at Hannah holding the smoking pistol she'd pulled from under the blankets. "Shame if you didn't know I keep loaded guns in beds," she finished. Morrison dropped. His men went for their weapons, but Elias was already moving, wounded or not. 2 more shots. One man fell, the other fled bleeding. "You killed him," Dunn said from the doorway, staring at Morrison's body. "He threatened my baby." Hannah handed River to Maeve, tried to rise. The world tilted. "We need to go. Now. Before nothing." Maeve pushed her back. "You just birthed a child and killed a man. You're not going anywhere." "Boone will. We'll do nothing tonight." Dunn knelt by Morrison, pulled papers from his coat. Not with his foreman dead and witness to attempted murder of a woman in childbed. Even bought law has limits. Hannah felt darkness creeping at the edges. Blood, too much blood. Hers this time. "The journal," she whispered. "I'll take it," Altius promised. "First train to Billings, federal marshals by week's end." "The children—" "Will be safe. Maeve will send word to Ruth." Hannah wanted to argue, but the darkness was winning. The last thing she saw was River's face, ancient and new. The last thing she felt was Elias's hand in hers, calloused and sure. The last thing she thought was, "We're going to win this." Then black rushing up, and silence. The church bell rang steady through the snow. Hannah pulled her shawl tighter. River bundled against her chest. 3 weeks since Dry Fork, and she still moved careful, the birth and blood loss having taken their toll. "Ready?" Elias asked. He held Tom's hand while Nora carried the oilcloth bundle, their evidence, guarded like gold. "Ready?" They walked through Red Willow's Sunday streets, but not to regular service. Today was different. Today, the truth would sound from the pulpit. The church filled quick. Word had spread something was happening, something big. Ranchers who'd voted with Boone sat uncomfortable in back pews. Those who'd stood firm claimed the front. Women filled the middle, children hushed and watching. Silas Boone entered last, flanked by hired guns. Morrison's death had shaken him, but not broken. He took his usual pew like a king holding court, eyes scanning for threats. Pastor Williams rose nervous. "Before today's service, we have unusual business. Mr. Ward has asked to address the congregation." "This is highly irregular," Boone said, smooth. "Sunday service isn't for truth." Elias stood, the journal in his hands. "Thought that's exactly what church was for." He walked to the pulpit. Hannah saw him favor his side, the wound still pulled, but his voice came strong. 5 years ago, my wife died in a fire. I thought it was accident. Bad lamp, dry hay, my fault for not being careful." He opened the journal. "I was wrong." The church went still. Even the babies seemed to hold their breath. February 15th. Elias read. "Ward Ranch fire. Morrison and 3 others. Make it look like lamp accident. Woman and children expendable." He looked up. Signed by Jacob Morrison. Witnessed by Silas Boone. Whispers rose like wind. Boone stood, face dark. "That's a lie. A forgery." "Then you won't mind the federal marshals examining it." Elias pulled out papers. "Wire from Judge Carter in Billings. They'll be here Tuesday." The whispers became mutters. Then voices raised. "Murder in their town, their Christian town." "Where did you get this?" someone called. "From conscience," Hannah said, standing despite the pain. "From people tired of watching Boone steal and kill while we stayed quiet." "You have no proof," Boone said. "The word of a wounded rancher and his whore." The shot came from outside. Window glass shattered. Women screamed, ducked. Another shot. Then another. Not aimed at the congregation at the bell tower. The ringing stopped, replaced by shouts. "Fire! The church is on fire!" Smoke poured through the broken window. In the confusion, Boone's men moved. One grabbed for the journal. Nora, quick as thought, snatched it away, darted between pews. Another went for Hannah, got Elias's fist instead. Out, everyone, out. The congregation fled. Pushing and shoving, Hannah clutched River, tried to reach the children. Too many bodies, too much smoke. Then Ruth was there, Tom in her arms, pushing toward the door. Outside was chaos. The bell tower burned. Flames licking at dry wood. Snow fell on fire, creating steam that mixed with smoke. In the confusion, Hannah lost sight of Elias, of Nora with the journal. There, Maria Garza pointed. Across the churchyard. Boone strode toward his carriage. Two of his men dragged Nora between them, her face defiant but scared. The journal, Hannah gasped. He's taking, like hell. The voice came quiet behind her. Jenny Sutton stepped from between buildings, no longer the beaten girl from weeks ago. She held a rifle steady, aimed at Boone's back. "Let the child go," she called. Boone turned, saw her. His smile was cold. "Mrs. Sutton, thought you'd run." "Did run right to the territorial sheriff, told him interesting things about my husband's work, about you. Your word against mine. And mine." Caleb Dunn emerged from the other side, maimed hand steady on his pistol. "Told them about the fires. All of them." More figures appeared. The Nielsen brothers, Eduardo Garza, men and women Boone had pushed too far, finally pushing back. "You're surrounded," Hannah called. "Let her go." Boone's men looked nervous, outnumbered, outgunned, in daylight, in front of God and everyone. Not how they worked. "Pa," Tom's voice, high and scared. Hannah turned to see him pointing at the church. Through the smoke, a figure on the roof, Elias beating at flames with his coat, trying to stop the spread. "The fool," Ruth breathed. "He'll kill himself." But Hannah understood. The church was more than building. It was community. Hope. Lose it to Boone's fire. And they lost everything. "Take River." She thrust the baby at Ruth, ran toward the church. Others followed Eduardo, the Nielsens, even some who'd voted with Boone, fear forgotten in the face of common threat. They formed a bucket line, women and men working together, passing water hand to hand. The snow helped, the wind didn't. Hannah worked till her arms screamed, till her dress soaked through. On the roof, Elias fought like a man possessed. The fire had started outside arson. Not accident, but the old wood caught easy, spreading along the eaves. He stomped and beat, kicked burning shingles free. "Oh, look out!" A section of roof collapsed. Elias jumped clear, landed hard on the lower level. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, slow, he pushed up, kept fighting. That's when Hannah saw it clear, not the wounded stranger she'd chosen at auction, not the convenient protection she'd married, but a man who'd fight flames for principle, who'd risk everything for a building that meant community. The tower's going. The bell tower, already weakened, began to lean. People scattered. It fell slow, majestic, crashing through the roof, an explosion of sparks and timber. For a moment, silence. The fire had burned itself out, taking half the church but leaving half standing. Elias slid down from the roof, landed in waiting arms, burned, exhausted, but alive. Then applause, slow at first, building, not for the fire, but for the fighting, for people standing together. Hannah pushed through the crowd, found Elias leaning against what remained of the church wall. His hands were blistered, coat ruined, face black with soot. "You beautiful fool," she said. "Couldn't let it all burn." His voice rasped from smoke. "Not after everything." She kissed him then, not for show or convenience, but real, tasted smoke and sweat and something deeper. He kissed back, careful of her still healing body. When they broke apart, the world had shifted. Boone stood surrounded, Nora safe with the journal, Jenny Sutton and others holding guns steady. "Federal marshals get here Tuesday," Hannah called to him. "But I think our sheriff might want to hold you till then." The territorial sheriff, not the local law Boone owned, stepped forward. Jenny had done her work well. "Silas Boone, you're under arrest. Arson, conspiracy, murder. You have no authority." "Have all I need." The sheriff held up papers, including statements from your former employees about today's fire. Attacking a church during service, even bought judges won't swallow that. They took him away, him and his men, not gentle. The crowd parted to let them pass, then closed behind, neighbors again, not enemies. Ruth appeared with River, handed him back to Hannah. The baby fussed, hungry and cold, real needs in the middle of drama. "Inside," Pastor Williams called. "What's left of inside, we have thanks to give." They filed into the ruined church. Snow fell through the broken roof, but the altar stood untouched. Families crowded together, sharing warmth. "This isn't how I planned service," the pastor began, "but maybe it's what we needed, to see clear, to stand together." He talked about truth and courage, about communities that protect each other, about fire that purifies. Hannah barely heard, focused on Elias beside her. Children pressed close, baby at her breast, her strange family, forged in crisis. When they sang the final hymn, voices raised through holes in the roof. Smoke still hung in the air, but also something else. Hope, maybe, or just determination. Outside, the snow fell harder. It would cover the scorch marks, hide the damage till spring. But underneath, roots held firm. The church would be rebuilt. The town would heal. "Home?" Elias asked. Hannah looked at him, this man she'd bought, married, chosen. Saw how Nora held his hand proud, how Tom leaned trustingly against his side, how River settled peaceful in her arms. "Home," she agreed. They walked through the snow, past neighbors already planning the rebuild. Tomorrow would bring federal marshals, trials, the slow work of justice. But today they'd stood in fire and held. Behind them, the church bell lay twisted in the ruins, but as Hannah looked back, she saw Emil Nielsen pulling it free, testing its sound, cracked but not broken, still able to ring. Like all of them, damaged, scarred, but calling out clear. "We're here, we survived. We choose to keep standing." The snow covered their footprints as they went, but Hannah knew the path was marked deeper than weather could erase. In hearts, in memory, in the choice to say, "I do," and mean it. Every day, from here on. Together. Spring came slow to Montana, fighting winter for every inch of ground. Hannah stood on the rise above their new house, watching Elias and Eduardo Garza work the fence line. 6 months since the fire, since Boone's arrest, since everything changed. "Mama Hannah," Tom's voice carried from the creek. "Come see." She walked careful down the slope. River balanced on her hip. At 7 months, he was sturdy and curious, grabbing at everything. By the water, Tom and Nora had built a small dam, channeling flow to irrigate the kitchen garden. "Smart work," Hannah said. "Your PA teach you that." "Taught ourselves," Nora said, proud. At 9, she'd grown taller, steadier. "Water finds its way. We just help it along." Like everything else they'd built. Hannah looked back at the house, 2 stories of honest pine, windows facing the valley. Not fancy, but theirs. Half the deed in her name. Legal and binding, Elias had insisted, that day at the land office. Equal partners, he'd said, in everything. The water rights were secured now, too. After Boone's trial and conviction, the territorial government had reversed his false claims. Small ranchers kept their access. The creek ran free, shared fair among neighbors. A rider approached Ruth Bellamy on her steady mare. She visited twice a week, checking on River, bringing news from town. Afternoon, Ruth called. Brought mail and gossip, if you're interested. They sat on the porch Elias had built wide enough for visiting. River played with wooden blocks, while Tom and Nora ran off to check their rabbit traps. Jenny Sutton's married again, Ruth reported. That young lawyer from Billings who handled the prosecutions says he fell in love with her courage. Good for her. Hannah meant it. Jenny deserved happiness after what she'd endured. And the Thompsons are selling out, moving back east. Susan says she can't forget how her husband voted. Some wounds didn't heal clean. The vote that had split the community still echoed, but most were trying, rebuilding trust slow as they'd rebuilt the church. There's more. Ruth pulled out an envelope. From the court in Billings. Hannah's hands trembled as she opened it. The adoption papers, finally approved. Thomas and Nora Ward, legal children of Elias and Hannah Ward. No one could take them now. It's done, she whispered. Elias appeared around the corner, drawn by some instinct. Saw her face, the papers. His smile spread slow, lighting his whole face. Done. Done. He pulled her up, spun her careful with River between them. The baby laughed, delighted by the movement. When Elias set her down, he kept his arms around them both. We should tell them proper, he said. They called the children, sat them down serious on the porch steps. You know you're ours, Hannah began. Been ours since that first day, but now... Now it's written on paper. Elias finished. Legal true. You're our children, forever. Tom launched himself at them, all knees and elbows and fierce joy. Nora came slower, but her hug was just as tight. Can we still remember Mama? She asked, quiet. Our first Mama. Always, Hannah said firm. She's part of you, part of our family story. We don't erase the past, we build on it. Like the quilt she was making from scraps pieces of her old life. Elias's worn shirts, fabric from her shop days. Each square a memory, but together making something new and warm. Later, as afternoon faded, neighbors began arriving. Word had spread about the adoption papers. The Garzas brought tamales. The Nilsons carried fresh bread. Others came with preserves, dried meat, small gifts. Thought we should celebrate proper, Maria said. Family's important out here. They gathered in the yard. Tables made from sawhorses and planks. Children ran wild while adults talked about crops, weather, plans. Normal conversation for normal people living normal lives. Never thought I'd have this. Elias said quiet beside Hannah. They stood apart, watching the gathering. After Mary died, thought that was my one chance gone. Thought the same after James. Hannah shifted River to her other hip. Figured I'd just endure, survive. Instead, she looked at him. This man she'd married for convenience and come to love through choice. Not the desperate, grasping love of youth. Something deeper, built on daily kindness and shared purpose. Instead, we chose. She touched his face, traced the scar near his eye from fighting the church fire. Every day, we choose. He caught her hand, kissed her palm. Such simple gesture, but it made her breath catch still. Hannah Elias, Ruth called. Come on, Eduardo's got his fiddle out. They joined the party as music started. Not fancy playing, but true. People danced on packed earth, children spinning till they felt dizzy. Hannah passed River to eager arms. Everyone wanted to hold the baby who'd been born in violence, but thrived in peace. As stars came out, she found herself dancing with Elias. He moved careful, mindful of her feet, but sure. Remember our wedding? He asked. No dancing then. No, he spun her gentle. But if there had been, I'd have stepped on your feet, been too scared to do else. And now? Now I know your feet can take it. They laughed, drawing smiles from others. Let them look. Let them see what could grow from desperate choices. The party wound down slow. Families drifted off with sleepy children and promises to visit soon. Hannah and Elias cleaned up together, working in comfortable rhythm. "Good day," she said, drying the last plate. "Best day." He hung the dish towel precise on its hook, though tomorrow might be better. "Why's that?" "Because we'll wake up together, work together, build something together." He pulled her close, breathed into her hair. Each day better than the last, if we're lucky. Upstairs, they checked the children. Tom sprawled across his bed, one foot on the floor. Nora curled neat under her quilt, the adoption papers on her nightstand where she could see them first thing. In their own room, River slept in the cradle Elias had built. Hannah changed into her nightgown. Nothing fancy, but Elias watched like she wore silk. "What?" she asked. "Just looking." He sat on the bed edge, pulled off his boots. "Still can't believe sometimes that you chose me, that we made this. Believe it." She sat beside him, took his hand. "Work rough, scarred, gentle. We earned this, every bit." They lay down together, window open to spring air. Somewhere an owl called. The creek whispered over stones. Peace sounds. Earned sounds. "Tell me," she said into the dark. "Tell me this lasts." "Can't promise that." His arm came around her, pulled her back against his chest. "But I can promise to fight for it, every day. That enough?" "Yes." She turned in his arms, found his mouth in the darkness. "Yes." They made love slow, careful of each other's scars, but not shy of them. What had started as duty had become desire, deep and true. After, they lay tangled, listening to night sounds and their children's breathing. The water rights documents came through final today. Elias said drowsy, "Your name on half, like we agreed." "Good." She traced patterns on his chest. "Though I was thinking—" "Dangerous habit." She pinched him light. "Thinking we might deed some to the Garzas and the Nilsons, spread it out so no one can monopolize again. Give away what we fought for. Share what we fought for. Make it harder for the next boon to take hold." He was quiet long enough she thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, "You're right. We'll draw up papers tomorrow." "I love you," she said, surprising herself. First time she'd said it full out. "About time." His voice held laughter and something deeper. "Been loving you since you stood in that church with a horseshoe nail ring and no promises except survival." "That all I promised?" "That's all? But you delivered more." They both had. Delivered family from strangers. Hope from desperation. Love from convenience. The arithmetic of it didn't make sense, but the reality lay warm in their bed. Breathed in the next room. Would wake tomorrow demanding breakfast and believing in forever. The moon rose full, spilling silver through the window. It caught on the quilt Hannah had finally finished, all those pieces stitched together into something whole, like their lives, like their family. "Sleep," Elias murmured. "Tomorrow's coming fast. Let it come." Hannah settled deeper into his warmth. "We're ready." And they were ready for whatever the frontier threw at them, because they'd face it together, by choice, by promise, by love earned one day at a time. Outside, the creek sang its old song, water finding its way, just like Nora said, no stopping it, only joining its flow. Hannah smiled into the darkness and let sleep take her. Home. They stayed. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed following Hannah and Elias on their journey from desperate strangers to a true family. If you're listening to this tale, I'd love to know where in the world you're experiencing this Wild West love story. Please share in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the From Wild West channel and let me know your thoughts about Hannah's courage and the choices she made. What would you have done in her shoes? Your comments and stories mean the world to me.